Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming along to this session on Sophos's managed detection and response. My name is Isaac. I'm usually ADM's resident speaker, but today we have a special guest speaker from Sophos. If you have any questions during the presentation, please do put it in the chat, as Penelope's mentioned in the chat there, and I'll jump in and ask Mark when it's reasonable to do so. If you have any questions you think of following the session, please don't hesitate to contact us. And I do just want to quickly touch on who ADM Computing are for those of you that aren't currently working with us. So we're a multi-award winning technology services company based in Canterbury and serving the southeast of the UK and now further beyond. We always seek to understand the challenges that our clients face and resolve them with the use of IT. And we've been doing that successfully for over 37 years. We work with customers in various sectors, including professional practices, manufacturers, charity, education, as well as logistics and distribution. And we usually find the majority of our clients fall between the 15 to 150 users bracket. We have over 75 members of staff, 3/4 of whom are technical or involved with the service delivery teams. And every day over 7,500 users across 500 customers rely on us for their businesses. And many of our clients have been with us for over 20 years. We are one of the most successful Microsoft partners and resellers in the UK. We're in the top 20 partners out of several thousand, and we're a Sophos Gold partner as well. We look after our clients, which is why we've won numerous awards for customer service, and we look after our staff as well, which is why our average length of service is 11 years. And we've come a long way since we established ourselves as an IT business in 1984. A lot has changed since then, but we're proud to uphold and continue our excellent standards of service and expertise. So without further ado, I'd now like to pass over to Mark Byrne at Sophos, who's going to tell you a little bit about himself and Sophos's brilliant new entry into the cybersecurity space. So Mark, over to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Isaac. Welcome, everyone. Just a little bit about me before we get going. My name is Mark. I'm one of the sales engineers at Sophos. I've been working with Sophos for some time now. Before I came to Sophos, though, I was a customer of Sophos's. So I worked in a large enterprise environment. 1,600 staff globally, multiple manufacturing facilities worldwide. So I had all the concerns and the issues that everyone in IT faces today. I need to be able to protect staff, protect data, making sure that our estate was as secure as it could be while we're complying with regulations like Cyber Essentials Plus, ISO 27001. So in all my dealings with cybersecurity around presenting like this, I always come back to what did it mean to me as a customer? How did I use this in the wild, as it were? And this is kind of my thought processes and where I come from in cybersecurity. So to start off with then, we're talking about MDR today, and we have to sort of touch on the state of ransomware. Sophos commissioned an independent vendor agnostic survey of 5,600 IT professionals from 31 countries. So respondents were from mid-sized organizations from 100 to 5,000 employees, and the survey was conducted during January and February 2022. And the respondents were asked to respond based upon their experiences over the previous year. We got Vanson Bourne to do this research for us. This was wholly independent and high standards of market research. The state of ransomware, unfortunately, the hard truths are that of the respondents we got back, 66% of them were hit by ransomware in the previous year. Of that number, nearly half paid the ransom. Attacks successfully encrypted 65% of data, and it cost the companies on average around £1.4 million to recover from a ransomware attack. So you might be thinking, well, who are the targets? Where are we looking at in terms of sectors? Unfortunately, it's across the whole gamut of organizations and sectors. So yes, media, leisure, entertainment tend to get the brunt of this, but certainly energy, gas utilities, healthcare, higher education, and government are also targets for ransomware. It's also not particularly exclusive to large enterprise organizations. This particular graph here is showing us that essentially from 1 to 250 users took over 50% of all the ransomware cases that we saw. And indeed, the National Cybersecurity Centre of the NCSC in the UK has declared that ransomware is the #1 cyber threat for enterprises and SMEs, with RDP, the Remote Desktop Protocol, being the single most common ransomware attack vector. So what happens when you arrive to work and you're faced with something like this? All your files are encrypted, you need to pay us a lot of money to get the decryption back. How long is it going to take organizations on average to recover from an incident like this? And sadly, on average, organizations that suffered attacks in the last year took a month to recover from the most significant attacks, a long time for most companies. The slowest recoveries were reported by higher education and government, where around 2 in 5 took over a month to recover. And in contrast, the fastest sectors to recover were manufacturing and production. So 10% took over a month in manufacturing, and financial services took about 12% took over a month. So it's the likely result of higher levels of recovery planning and preparation. So how bad can it get? So at this point, it's going to be remiss not to talk about the elephant in the room, the war in Ukraine. So right now, the threat landscape has a more ominous tone than normal. We're still seeing all the normal attacks you expect to see: scams, coin mining, ransomware, and phishing. But with every new attack reported against critical infrastructure, food supplies and communication systems, there comes with it the question, was this Russia or was it Ukraine? And just like with nuclear and chemical weapons, there are red lines that countries understand they shouldn't cross in normal warfare. Those red lines exist in cyber as well, but this year we've been seeing these lines being crossed. This all starts with the same thing we see every time there's a large global event: scammers trying to take advantage of the situation. Just like at the start of the pandemic, when we saw lots of COVID-related scams, when the war escalated on February the 24th, we started seeing scams asking for money to help Ukrainian refugees. Now, while this was short-lived, but on March the 6th, they accounted for roughly half of the world's entire spam. Another notable spam campaign that month came from the Emotet malware family, and that continued its tradition of taking advantage of situations for financial gain. And this campaign included documents on spam emails with clickbait style titles, trying to trick users into opening them and enabling the malicious macros inside. But one of the most significant cyber events that happened this year because of the war was what was called the Conti and TrickBot leaks. At the time, Conti was one of the most active ransomware as a service groups around, and well known for its Russian roots. The FBI calculated the group are in the region of $1 billion organization. At the onset of the war, they published a press statement declaring themselves on Russia's side, and this didn't sit well with the Ukrainian affiliates using the Conti ransomware service. And this resulted in one of them leaking large amounts of files, documents, and thousands of internal chat messages, revealing salary structures, HR recruitment procedures, divulging that the group used legitimate headhunters to help find new employees, and that performance reviews, teams, team leaders, training opportunities, and even an Employee of the Month program were all part of the deal when working for Conti. So this information not only provided detailed instructions on how to launch ransomware attacks, and that allowed security companies to create new protections against their techniques, but it revealed the inner workings of a very organized, very large and well-funded cybercrime gang. At this point, it's unclear whether Conti is truly gone, or if the group or certain members are simply taking the time to restructure and make a comeback in the future. When it comes to nation-state cyber attacks, we haven't really seen the predicted Cybergeddon, and only a few stand out as having much impact at all. So firstly, there was the destructive Wiper ransomware attack against the satellite communications firm Viasat, and this affected satellite services for both Ukraine and customers elsewhere in Europe. And this has been firmly attributed to Russia. More recently, there's been defacement and DDoS-style attacks against the US airport websites, knocking out some of them for short periods. And attacks like this are more of an annoyance than a military significance. A more interesting attack was done by a group calling themselves the Cyber Partisans. So they support Ukraine and been trying to keep Belarus out of the war. Back in January, before the invasion began, they used ransomware to encrypt the Belarusian railway control systems and bringing some of the trains to a stop. Shortly after the full Russian invasion started, they did it again, causing widespread impact on train networks that at the time were being used by Russia to move troops and equipment. And this had a fairly significant impact on the battlefield. But one of my personal favorite attacks in support of Ukraine is the repeated hacking of CCTV cameras in Russia that are connected to the internet, and then using these to play Ukrainian songs over the speakers and watching the reactions of the staff in these videos and then broadcasting these on the internet. So a bit closer to home, in terms of how bad it can get, I'm going to walk you through a case that we had for rapid response. And this is one of the worst cases I think I've ever seen, but it's something that we're seeing developing more and more often. This particular company is based in the US, and they were breached in December 2021. From the initial breach, not a lot happened, and we assume this is because they've been breached by what we call initial access brokers, teams of criminals whose only job is to break into a company, do a little bit of reconnaissance, and then they sell that information on the dark web. 20th of April was the first attack, and this was a group using Mimikatz for credential theft, and then used PSExec to deploy Lockbit for ransomware. They extracted a lot of information and left their ransom note. Literally 2 hours later, a different group used Hive ransomware on the same account and gained access via the same machine to deploy their ransomware. They used the company's own software deployment tool, PDQ Deploy, against them. 2 weeks later, and the victim still in recovery from the first set of attacks, a third group, the BlackCat Alpha ransomware, they dropped in, again using PSExec to deploy their ransomware. They also wiped the logs and dropped their ransom note as well. Sophos Rapid Response were involved at this particular point and started to unpick all this encryption and the ransomware attack. And when we intervened and looked at what had happened, what we saw was in certain cases on this company's server that files have been encrypted 5 times. So then we see the first attack, that's the file, the Lockbit ransomware was dropped, and then that was encrypted. And then we saw a second attack literally a couple of hours later with the Hive ransomware, but the Lockbit hadn't finished doing its encryption. So it went round again for a second try. Hive also hadn't finished its encryption. It went round again for another go. And then finally, we saw BlackCat dropping in later on. This is a website you can go to, use at sophos.com to read a full description and a full breakdown of that particular attack. Again, closer to home, HSE in Ireland was suffered a huge cyber attack very recently, and they had again been breached initially in March when the initial attack took place, and then the criminals used legitimate tools to navigate around their network to get the domain controller. Once they had domain level access, they dropped their Conti ransomware. Again, Conti ransomware group involved here. And this took out the whole of the HSE for a significant period of time. The ransomware was not paid in this particular case. War room was set up, and we found that lots of data had been extracted from HSE. The point here is that the ongoing cost to cybercrime is significant. On the 21st of May, for whatever reasons, we're not quite sure yet, the Conti ransomware group actually gave the decryption key back, which allowed HSE to decrypt the servers and bring the servers back online. It still took a couple of weeks to do that, but essentially, had they not given that key back, they would never have had the ability to decrypt these servers and restore service. HSE still have to provide ongoing fraud alerts and fraud monitoring for all the customers whose data was leaked. And as of today, that bill is still running, and it's around 80 million euros and counting. So the ongoing cost is quite significant. So the question is, why is this so bad? Why does it get this bad? And the answer here is that technology alone in cyber defense is just not enough. When we're looking at cybercrime, when we're looking at rapid response and Sophos MDR, we tend to see that in every case we've looked at, there were observable warning signs, something going on in the environment before the attack took place. And that with the avalanche of alerts and the volume of alerts, the complexity of cyber defense, we see that a lot of these signs are just missed. And this is because the challenge with modern day threat hunting is we're looking for that proverbial needle in a haystack. Okay, it's true to say that the reality is that technology solutions can't prevent every cyber attack. At the same time, organizations are struggling to keep up with the volume, complexity, and impact of these attacks. And this is where managed detection and response comes in. Sophos MDR is a fully managed 24/7 service delivered by experts who specialize in detecting and responding to cyber attacks that technology solutions alone can't prevent. We combine human expertise with powerful protection technology and advanced AI-powered machine learning models, so security analysts can detect, investigate, and neutralize even the most advanced human-led attacks, preventing data breaches and ransomware. And it all starts with this security operations center that proactively identifies and neutralizes the most advanced attacks. It can be managed by us, it can be managed by you, the customers, or as many customers prefer, by us both in partnership. The cybersecurity as a service provides this world-class integrated cyber defenses across endpoints, network, email, and cloud that work with what you already have. Because cybersecurity needs to fit within your world and your tech stack and not the other way around. Everything is powered by this expert team of cybersecurity professionals with AI, malware, security operations, and product specialists all working together in a highly tightly integrated team, sharing threat intelligence, constantly enhancing our customers' defenses to keep them ahead of the threats. And it's all managed through an intuitive cloud-based security platform, Sophos Central, that brings together our technologies, the management tools, APIs, and third-party integrations into one easy-to-navigate console. It's available to everyone, enabling all organizations that can now enjoy the same level of cybersecurity readiness as the largest and most sophisticated companies in the world. So Sophos brings together telemetry from different endpoints and different products into the MDR environment to help us hunt for threats and look at early indicators of compromise. We include XDR, endpoint, cloud, firewall, and email integrations free of charge. That's including in the MDR service if you're already using these particular products. We also include the ability to ingest threat data and telemetry from Microsoft Graph Security and Office 365 management activity as well. We can sit alongside any third-party endpoint protection, so you don't even have to put Sophos Intercept X Advanced in. We can work with what you already have. We also have a 90 days data retention policy, enabling you and your IT and security admins to run threat hunts and also look at IT health hygiene questions in your environment for up to 90 days. But Sophos is not just about their own ecosystem anymore. We can now bring in telemetry and threat data from third-party products as well. So third-party firewalls, identity access, public cloud, email, and network products can all be brought into and work with Sophos MDR. We also allow and encourage people to extend the data retention period from the 90 days that we provide up to a year in the cloud. Basically, if you've got existing tools that you like, great, Sophos can work with those too. Telemetry, events, and investigations now are bringing in from the Sophos product lines as well as third-party integrations, as we just talked about. We're bringing in these telemetry and threat data from these sensors into the data lake, and our machine learning engines scrub that data, looking at trends across different devices and across time to find those malicious and suspicious activities, that behavior that would deem to be something of note that we need to look at. We're processing billions of events daily, bringing into detections, then cases, and finally active cases that require some investigation and some remediation. In terms of speed, everything is all about speed. So with Sophos Endpoint Protection, blocking the majority of threats, that leaves the remaining threats to be fewer but more qualified detections. And the cybersecurity as a service enables Sophos customers to stop threats faster than anyone else. So we're reducing your attack surface, removing opportunity for attackers to penetrate your organization, preventing attacks from running, using layer protection technologies to stop both the threats and the tactics attackers use. By optimizing that prevention, Sophos enables security operations to focus on fewer but more accurate detections, fewer false positives, enabling faster investigation and response. Our MDR service today is on average detecting threats in an environment in less than a minute. We're investigating around 25 minutes using things like collective insights and expertise of XOps to enrich investigations. And our mean time to recovery is just 12 minutes. So that's an average response time of 38 minutes. And we're constantly focused on optimizing that. So in terms of leaving the audience happy, we've seen how bad it can get. We've seen an attack with multiple attackers executing ransomware in an environment and having to unpick all that data. So now what I'm going to do is just walk through a particular case using MDR and how this could protect a customer from this attack ever starting in the first place. And in this particular case, we're looking at Proofpoint and Windows Defender as the AV. And in this instance here, we had 234 alerts being generated by the email protection appliance. So these were sent to MDR over a course of time. And we saw that we had 69 internal devices being targeted and 14 external devices from the source of these detections. So these were brought together into a case that needed looking at. The alerts were broken into one particular alert type, phishing, particularly SL, which is the MITRE technique 1192, the spear phishing links. So these are targeting attacks to employees, combining social engineering with reconnaissance. With this in place, it was given to an analyst to look at, and here we're looking at a breakdown of what we observed. We can see in the client portal, we can see the message time, where the threat came from, we can see what the subject was, we can see in this particular case, this has been a spoofed email sender as part of the security organization for the French government, and we can see there were 2 attachments on this particular email. So by looking at OSINT and our XDR toolkit, our analysts were able to show that this IP address that the emails came from were known to be malicious. We could search for executions of the text files within the email messages on the MDR managed assets. And we can also search the network journals to look at any traffic going out to these malicious phishing URLs. And using the data lake, our analysts can search then for any processes related to the malware to determine if anything has successfully executed. And in this particular example, the analyst searched the data lake for relating to the domain, but found no traffic going out there. So we were able then to write this up as a synopsis, as a case in the MDR portal for the customer to see. But also we sent out email escalations to the customer, notifying them what we observed, what the activity was, where it came from, who it went to, and also any recommendations that we would provide in terms of hardening their infrastructure and environment to sort of prevent this from happening again. So this basically saw something early on in that kill chain, looking at the phishing attempt, and was able to stop this from escalating any further and give the customer peace of mind that no one in their organization had clicked any of these links, nothing had been sent, and nothing had been run. So just to wrap up here, Gartner predicted that in 2025, half of organizations will be using MDR in some description. The challenge is in stopping advanced threats together with a shortage and high cost of delivering threat hunting, investigation and response, is why organizations are going towards and adding managed detection and response service to their cyber defenses. At Sophos, our MDR service is the fastest growing offering in our portfolio, and today we serve over 15,000 organizations around the globe with MDR alone. Cybersecurity is a complicated, expensive offering for many organizations, and it's a challenge for a lot of them to do it correctly. This is why they're turning to MDR services, which provide that 24/7, 365 threat hunting capability, as well as being able to respond to active threats. Complex attacks need complete investigation by skilled cybersecurity professionals, and this is why Sophos MDR can meet you where you are. If you have a Sophos ecosystem, we can do a lot of work with you already. If you don't have a Sophos ecosystem already, then we can work with what you already have. With that, I'd like to thank you very much and hand you back to Isaac.
Thanks very much, Mark. We do have one question that's come through, which is artificial intelligence being used to create or detect these threats, brackets SOAR, SOAR, and are they known or unknown threats?
Oh, that's a great question. So Sophos have heavily used AI for some time to look at executables. So we can look at the known executables. We have this vast database of pretty much every piece of malware that's ever been seen. So we would automatically be comparing that to the database we already have. But AI is used for unknown executables, looking at where it's come from, where it's executed, what processes is it generating. So yes, Sophos is heavily using AI in terms of its endpoint protection piece.
Thanks very much for that, Mark. And if you have any questions, any of you watching, or would like to continue the discussion, please do contact us on the sales number or the email on the screen, the sales number being 01227 473 500 and the email being sales@adm-computing.co.uk. You can also check out some future events that are coming up on our website, adm-computing.co.uk, and on the events page, and also have a look at what we can offer on there as well. I would once again like to say a massive thank you to Mark for guest speaking and doing a fantastic job. There's minimal questions, which is always a good sign, Mark. And also a big thank you to all of you for taking the time out of your days to join us. And that's pretty much all of it. We'll wrap up. And yes, thank you very much.